Hey everybody, this is John, and you're watching the Real Man Rom-Com Review. This week I'm going to give you my review of the Hallmark and Great American Family Christmas movies of the weekend of December 2nd through the 4th in 2022. Number 6 on my list is Christmas on Candy Cane Lane, which aired the 3rd of December, which was a Saturday on Great American Family. Now, Ivy Donaldson is the daughter of the Christmas maven, Muriel Donaldson. Now, Mom's died, and Ivy, has taken over Mom's business, Mom's role in the Christmas board, and Mom's role in the Candy Cane Lane events, all while newly divorced and trying to raise a teenage daughter. Needless to say, she is a little overwhelmed. Now, her Grinchy neighbor is mad because the light show on Candy Cane is about to begin, and there are only 2 houses that are not decorated for Christmas, Ivy's and Tilda's, and Tilda just moved into her new home. Now, someone ends up rearranging the Candy Cane display at Grinchy's neighbor house, and Tilda, who's a cop, is on the case to find the Candy Cane prankster. Now, what kind of a name is Candy Cane prankster? Anyway, Bob, who's her ex-husband, he's back in town, and he runs in some kind of local general store. And Bob wants to patch things up with Ivy, so he decides he's going to go over and hang lights on her on his old house. I mean, what a nice guy! How many people go and hang lights on their old house? Anyway, Devin is a local handyman / Christmas light guy in town. And Tilda thinks that he's the prankster because she arrested him for stealing hearts back in February from a town display. Now, when Tilda discovers that Devin is actually a decorated veteran and that a jilted woman actually ruined the display over a bad breakup, well, Tilda realizes that she's made a mistake. Now, Tilda does eventually catch the prankster in the act, and we come to find out that it's Ivy's daughter, Jordan. It seems Jordan wanted to return the grinchiness of Grinchy neighbor by messing up her display. Well, technically, since she didn't destroy any property, and while she isn't being formally charged with a crime, so she gets to help Grinchy neighbor put away Grinchy neighbor's decorations at the end of the season. Anyway, so Bob now up and proposes to Ivy out of the blue, and Devin and Tilda, they fall in love. And Ivy turns the store over to her friend, and she retires as the chair of the board and asks Bob to ask her to marry him again. And he does, and she does, and they kissy. Look, this was another disappointing slog through a Great American Family Christmas movie. I mean, I couldn't get the idea that I was watching Kimmy Gibbler the whole time. If you don't know who Kimmy Gibbler is, she was the friend of the daughters in Full House. Look, this storyline was horrible. The only characters I had any feeling about was the Grinchy neighbor. So just do yourself a favor and just skip it. Now, number 5 was The Holiday Stocking, which aired Saturday, the 4th of December on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. Now, we flash back to sometime, let's say in the 90s, and we see that there's Robert, Cricket, and Danny, and they play this thing called the stocking game each Christmas with their mom. And the stocking game is they pull a riddle out of the hat, and whoever solves the riddle gets to decide what kind of volunteer service that they're going to provide to the community. And so the stocking game is 5 riddles each year, so there's 5 opportunities to be of service. So now come to present day, Robert has passed, and he's now an angel, I guess, or whatever. He's about to transcend to heaven. Now his angelic trainer asks if he has had any regrets in his life, and Robert says that he's only got one, that his family has become estranged. So this angelic trainer person grants him 12 days to find a way to repair the broken relationship between his surviving sisters. Now, since he's dead, of course, he can't come back as himself, so he's given a new image and a new name, RJ. So now we're 11 days before Christmas, because I guess that was all that they could do on... So now it's 11 days before Christmas, because I guess that's all they could do on day one, and until Christmas Eve. And we find that Danny, who's now older, she owns a successful ad agency in Chicago, and she's looking to expand her business, but the investor is hesitant to give her any money because she doesn't have any volunteer or philanthropic things associated with her business. Now, RJ comes to Danny's house and introduces himself, who's someone with Robert's estate, and wants her to play the stocking game one last time as Robert's dying wish. Well, of course, she's too busy for games. And then Marlo, a.k.a. Cricket, runs the bakery that her and her mother started years ago, and RJ left a card at Marlo's house asking her to meet at the Christmas market. Well, over the next few days, Danny, Marlo, and her daughter Gia end up playing the stocking game, and RJ introduces Danny to a guy named Wilson who runs a family-owned barbecue joint and heads up the Friends of Chicago charity that the girls are going to be providing service to as part of the stocking game. Well, sparks definitely fly between Danny and Wilson until Wilson overhears Danny talking poorly about Wilson, which really didn't go over too well. Now, Wilson allows Danny to make amends by volunteering at the women's clothes closet early the next morning. I mean, like 7 a.m. early, So anyway, and at the event, Danny apologizes for her actions, and Wilson, forgives her. And Marlo and her husband, who's just returned from a long-haul truck driving job, gets all gussied up, and they have this big date night, and something that Marlo hasn't been able to do in years. And we eventually get to 4 days to go, and the girls figure out the fifth and final riddle of this thing, and they decide to throw a party for the Friends of Chicago. And well, RJ, at that point, he feels like they've played the game. He feels like they've solved his mission, but his angelic friend hands him his own riddle that he needs to solve. And if he can't solve it, then the reunion of his family may be torn apart again. So it's 3 days to go, and they managed to put together a party in just 24 hours. And Marlo finds out that Danny is being interviewed for her charity work, and that she did it to win over this investor. So feeling used, of course, she gets very angry and leaves the party and wants nothing more to do with Danny. So RJ goes to Marlo's house and tells her that Robert realized that he failed to be there for her when his mom died. And Danny receives a card with the photo that she took of Robert in the flashback with a note that says, "I'm sorry." So here we are. It's now 1 day to go, and Gia, who's Marlo's daughter, wants to go sledding with her family. And Danny shows up because RJ told her to be there, and they make up and they hug it out. And then RJ also told Wilson that Danny would be at the park, and they kiss before they go sledding down the sledding thing together. So now it's Christmas Eve, and Danny does her interview, but instead of talking about her company, she shares the story of the stocking game. Well, she ends up resigning from the company so that she can spend time volunteering in the community and reconnecting with her family. And the investor hears the interview and ends up giving them the money anyway so they can expand their business. So RJ has one thing left to do before he goes, and that's getting his sisters to come to the bakery where they find an old family photo. And RJ shows up, because that's what RJ does. He shows up everywhere, and he has a box of Robert's things, and in there is a Polaroid that they had from back in the flashback. And Danny takes a photo of RJ before he leaves. And as RJ is coming to the door, as he walks out, he turns and the girls see Robert. Now, Robert then walks down the street where he snaps his fingers using his newly found angel magic to light the street. Look, this movie was part of Hallmark's Mahogany brand, which was created back in 1987 and is geared towards African-American consumers. And this aligns with the new direction of the Hallmark Channel as being a more diverse and inclusive brand since Bill Appett's departure. Now, I did love the premise of the stocking game itself. I mean, being in service, especially around Christmas, is something I've been doing since my high school FCA days. I mean, back then we sang Christmas carols every year to the community, and we delivered food and gifts to needy families and all of that. And until COVID, I'd spent the last several years at Operation Christmas Child packing up shoe boxes that people send to the warehouse. So, look, the ultimate gift is to give of oneself, and I encourage you all to find a way to give back that doesn't involve writing a check or dropping $1 into the red kettle. For a Hallmark movie and mysteries movie, this one didn't give me that boo-hoo moment that I've had so many times already this season. But overall, this was a good middle-of-the-road movie, but I'm probably not going to watch this again. Now, my number 4 movie is Undercover Holiday, which aired Sunday, the 4th of December, on the Hallmark Channel. Former pop star USA champion Jalen Rodriguez is an up-and-coming Latin American singer who wants to make her music her way. And Benny, who's her manager, tells her that she will one day, but right now she doesn't want to tick off the label, so she needs to just kind of play along with things, and one day she'll be able to do that. So she goes back to her home in Los Angeles, and she finds that the security gate at her house is wide open, and that someone has left a note and a rose on the walkway of her house. Now, fearing that she has a stalker, Benny and the label want her now to have 24/7 security while she goes back home to, I love this town name, Squirrels Hollow, which actually doesn't exist anywhere on the U.S. map. But anyway, while rehearsing at the piano, Jay hears which is her name, hears glass breaking outside. And so she goes outside and she's attacked by a man. And that man ends up being Matt Lois, who's a former Navy SEAL and her new bodyguard. Now, when Jay arrives home in Squirrels Hollow, the family is so excited to see her, and they ask who Matt is. Well, she doesn't introduce him as her bodyguard, but her boyfriend, which doesn't go over well with Matt. Now, against wishes, Jay goes to meet her friends at karaoke, where she's told that she's been chosen as the Grand Marshal for the Christmas Eve tree lighting ceremony. Now, wait a minute, hold on. Who the hell lights a Christmas tree on Christmas Eve? Come on now, they gotta do better than this, people. Anyway, when pressed about how they met, Margot, who is Jay's personal assistant, spins this tale of how she set them up together after she swiped right on Matt, but discovered that they were they were incompatible. Now, Jay and her former friend Lorelai, they end up lip syncing together, and hearing another glass break, because this is all they can do in the movie is break glass, I guess. Matt rushes Jay out the back door, and embarrassed they argue, and in walks ex-boyfriend Eddie to kind of break up the thing. Now, the next day, the family ends up recruiting Matt to be a wise man for their living nativity that they put on each year. Now, Jay's brother Hector finds another note and a rose on the front stoop, and he shows Matt, and they decide to keep it on the low for right now. And during the nativity, Jay's extremely pregnant sister, who's playing Mary this year, ends up going into labor early. And the next day, the family and Matt end up making tamales together. And Matt is starting to really like being around family, and this family in particular, and Jay also. Now, Jay and her abuela talk about love and how Matt's a really tough nut to crack. And she ends up telling Jay that, some hearts are harder to reach than others. Now, Hector finds a third note, and this time it's in the mailbox. I mean, whoever this person is, they're getting closer and closer and closer to Jay. Now, while out walking together that evening, Matt and Jay confess that they have feelings for each other and kiss. And back home, they get back home, and the family is setting out luminaries, and part of setting out luminaries is they get to make Christmas wishes. Now, we finally get to the tree lighting ceremony on Christmas Eve, and Jay thanks her friend Lorelai for encouraging her to try out for Popstar USA and putting her on this path that she's on. And using encouragement that she got from Matt earlier in the movie, Jay decides to do a song her way and sings in Spanish and English. Well, Benny, the manager, calls, and he is furious. But the label heard it, and they liked it, and they want to hear more from her like this going forward. Jay discovers that Matt and Hector have been keeping the notes that her ex-boyfriend Eddie was leaving for her from them, and she gets mad and tells the family the truth about her fake relationship with Matt. And the family is confused and upset with Jay, and Jay decides to go off alone. And Lorelai ends up finding Jay and apologizes for being this jealous friend. Well, it's Christmas Day, and Matt shows up in his wise man costume, pronouncing his love for Jay. And he gives her a journal that she can write her songs in. Kissy, kissy, Feliz Navidad. Look, this is really kind of just a ho-hum Christmas movie that just really didn't excite me. I mean, the stalker story had no teeth. It was only a part of the movie to provide a reason for Jay and Matt to come together. But Noemi Gonzalez, who plays Jay, is a real joy to watch. I mean, she has this infectious smile and personality, and you just want to bring her home to meet Mom. Now, all the Latino aspects of the story with the family were fun. I mean, they got to make tamales together, and we got to do the nativity thing together. Okay, that's not necessarily Latino, but they got to do it together as a family. And the whole Luminaries thing. Look, this is all great family stuff, and it was all a lot of fun. But I think my favorite character in this movie was Benny. Not that Benny was this great character, but it was because he was that angelic grandfather in the 2014 Hallmark movie mysteries classic Angels and Ornaments. I mean, gosh, I love that movie. Look, if these movies have made you want to go sing Christmas karaoke songs while eating tamales, then go do it! And if you want to hear my top 3 movie reviews for this weekend, or reviews from previous weekends, subscribe to my channel and ring the bell to be notified when a new video drops. Oh, and by the way, I'm wearing my brand new Great American Family Christmas shirt that I got this week. So, anyway, so I just thought I'd share with you. It was kind of fun. I'm probably one of the few people that have one. Anyway, so I'm John. You've been watching The Real Man Rom-Com Review.